People say I talk about some weird stuff, some far out stuff. But how about that chair that you're sitting in isn't solid? How weird is that? This reality is nothing like we think it is.
When I saw what Icke is doing, I was a bit jealous of him. Wow, look at what this guy's doing.
I don't know if anybody else could do it but him, actually.
We are in a period now where speaking your truth is not just important, it's utterly crucial to where humanity goes from here. The world needs renegades. Now this week, the playground bully, better known as the Israeli government and military, has been sending missile strikes on Syria, again, killing 4 civilians, including a toddler. And, of course, they get away with it. You know, apart from America and its immediate allies, who on earth can just shoot missiles whenever it wants and get away with it? With no condemnation from the powers, really, that makes any difference. Well, the only one is Israel, a country of 8 million people, run by a far, 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 far right military government, if the truth be told, that runs an apartheid state. And he gets away with that as well. At least 4 people, including a baby, were killed in the strikes on the Damascus countryside, while 21 others suffered injuries. One of those injured is a month-old baby who suffered burns and facial wounds. Besides the casualties, a number of houses on the outskirts of Damascus suffered material damage. The missiles were launched from the Lebanese airspace, because they just do what they bloody like. You want to go to someone's airspace? We're Israel. We do what we bloody like. Where Israeli aircraft were spotted making low-altitude flights around the time of the incident. And this is getting regular now. And all this anti-Semitic hysteria is to stop criticism of outrages like this. Well, I have my finger in the air in response. Truth needs to be told, and if people don't like it, well, they can do the other thing. That's all right with me. And, of course, the whole situation with Iran has been kicked off by Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu, the far, far, far right Israeli Prime Minister, claims responsibility, claims the credit, as he sees it, for getting Trump to drop the nuclear deal with Iran that's kicked off all this stuff, because Israel wants a war with Iran. He wants America to fight it, like all the other wars it's caused America to fight since 9/11. So it's now saying that it wants to get involved as well. Just the Israeli far, far, far right government and military and intelligence networks like Mossad are absolute psychopaths who are intent on violence at every opportunity. And no one needs to hear this more than the Jewish people as a whole around the world and in Israel, where there are many protests against the government of Israel from the Jewish community. You don't hear about that in the mainstream, because they want these far, 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 far right government military spokespeople. They want people to believe, and the hate group network that uses anti-Semitism to silence criticism of Israel around the world, they want people to believe that they speak for all Jewish people, like hell they do. They speak for a relatively small number of them, if the truth be told. And they would speak for even less if the Jewish community in general knew the goals and ambitions and what's really behind these people. So anyway,
Amid escalating tensions in the region, Israel has said it is preparing for possible military involvement in a confrontation between the US and Iran. We want to get involved. There's people to be killed. Foreign Minister Yisrael Katz warned an international security forum on Tuesday that the situation might be brought out of the, quote, grey zone and into the, quote, red zone of military conflagration. I think he orgasmed at that time. Military conflagration, crikey, I mean, that's just, it's got to be orgasmic for people like that. If Iran makes any mistaken calculations, which when passed through the Orwellian translation unit, comes out as if we can pin on Iran things that we're doing to blame on Iran as an excuse to trigger the war. Of course, they came within minutes of it until Trump pulled back. And as I said, I think in the last video cast, our last chat last week, he did that because he knew the consequences for him electorally at the next election of going to war with Iran, because it would be against everything he said in his election campaign. I got enormous chunks of his support for saying about not getting involved in foreign wars and intervening in other countries' affairs. But what they're now going to do is they're going to keep creating situations to blame on Iran, and everyone is going to be poking Trump in the chest until he submits to their will, which is to attack Iran. We hope that he stands up to it, but I'm not holding my breath. Israel, this guy Katz said, must be prepared for such an escalation and continues to devote itself to building up its military might with American money in the event that it would have to respond to escalation scenarios. They want a massive war in the Middle East, which leads to World War III, because it would pull Russia in, it would pull China in. Something I've been warning about now for 20, 25 years? That was the goal. And Israel, I mean, elephant in the room, sitting on the sofa. Israel, hello? Well, you can't say that. It's anti-Semitic. The fact that it's true is irrelevant then. Yeah. Okay, let's go on here. Yeah, what I was talking about, this anti-Semitic hysteria to protect Israel from criticism, not to protect Jewish people from discrimination. This protection racket, as I call it, this anti-Semitism industry, it's not interested in Jewish people. That's why it attacks Jewish people more than anyone else when they criticize Israel. It couldn't care less about Israel, about Jewish people. It only interested in Jewish people that support its agenda. Anyone who doesn't, well, they get the treatment more than anyone else. It's a protection racket. Here's a story from this week. Canada adopts Israel lobby's contested definition of anti-Semitism. Of course, Trudeau in Canada is like so many leaders, owned by this Israel lobby, and the government has agreed to accept the new definition of anti-Semitism, which is so wide it includes criticism of Israel, which is why it's there. And the Labour Party in Britain got down on its knees and prayed to Tel Aviv and accepted the same definition because it's got no backbone. And this definition has been accepted around the world. It's imposing now on academia. As universities accept it, what can be discussed and what can be criticised about Israel gets more and more deleted in academia. This is what's happening. People are terrified of saying so. Well, they might call me anti-Semitic. So what? Are you? No. So what does it matter if a network of hate groups being orchestrated out of the Ministry of Strategic Affairs in Israel calls you what you're not? So what? watch this space later in the year, by the way. Not too many weeks from now. Anyway, more about that in another time. So, Canada has fallen for that trap. And here we have a lady in Britain who was a member of the Labour Party. I say was, because they threw her out for anti-Semitism, which was absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. This is a lady called Jackie Walker. She was an activist in the opposition Labour Party in Britain. She is Jewish. She is black. She's an anti-racist activist. And she was thrown out of the Labour Party for being anti-Semitic. Well, what's actually happened here this week, interesting development. I'll read you the story. The BBC has upheld a complaint against former BBC political editor Nick Robinson after he wrongly tweeted that Jackie Walker had claimed that the Jews controlled the slave trade. This was a principal complaint against Ms. Walker, as they put in the story, and part of the basis on which both she and the writer of this story have been expelled from the Labour Party. As it is false, Labour's reasons for expelling us both may also be false. If the party's accusers were mistaken on one point, it is likely they were wrong about all of them. Well, they weren't bothered if it was truly anti-Semitism or not. They were only bothered in virtue signalling to the Zionist lobby. Look, we're not anti-Semitic like you tell us, so we've thrown these people out. They happen to be Jewish-like, but there you go. But this whole thing with Jackie Walker is just so typical of what's happening now. The mildest criticism of Israel, and the whole massive lobby comes down on you and hurls abuse and labels you and lies about you. You know, I've been there. I'm already there. I don't give a damn. But this is what happens, and this is how Israel is protected from criticism. Anyway, the BBC's had to apologize, and it came in a letter to Twitter user and campaigner against injustice Simon Maggin, who had complained about a tweet. Just take the phone out. There you go. Wasn't expecting that. Anyway, the BBC's apology came in a letter to Twitter user and campaigner against injustice Simon Maggin, who had complained about a tweet by Nick Robinson on February 26. Nick Robinson, I seem to believe, is Jewish. I can't be absolutely certain, but I think he is. And so here you have, if this is true, a BBC political editor who's Jewish attacking someone for anti-Semitism on Twitter and actually not telling the truth. I mean, will there be any comeback for Nick Robinson for doing that? Because if it was the other way round, there absolutely would be comeback, 100%. And so this is a classic case of one rule for one and one rule for another. His mother. I'm just checking here. His mother was had German Jewish parents, so he does have a Jewish background. Now, so what? I couldn't care bloody less. The point is that if someone with a non-Jewish background said something about someone else, or said something about Jewish people in the same way, they would have the whole fury of the anti-Semitism industry and the the protection racket upon them. But Nick Robinson can do it while being a BBC political editor. He should be neutral. And it's okay. This is the injustice, the unfairness, the skewed bias that people like me are challenging. I have a simple philosophy. Let everyone be treated the same, irrespective of race, background, culture, religion, everyone treated the same. And here we have another story. It's similar, on the same theme. This is a guy called Chris Williamson. He's the Labour Party MP for Derby North. He was thrown out of the party, or suspended anyway, for the outrageous statement. It was caught on film, so it made it even worse. That the Labour reaction to the anti-Semitism hysteria has been over the top. And basically, Labour Party should have defended itself far more instead of just kind of caving in. And he was suspended. And he's describing in this story how he received death threats. And of course, that doesn't matter. If you're a bad person, i.e. you say something the lobby doesn't want people to hear, then it doesn't matter if you have death threats. But if you're a good person, if you're a member of the lobby and you get death threats, then it's outrageous and a blatant example of anti-Semitism. Again, it's totally skewed. Anyway, what's happened this week is that Williamson was allowed back into the party, which is a very good thing. And all hell broke loose. And one of the guys that is driving this outrage at Williamson being allowed back in the party is a guy called John Landsman. John Landsman is a Zionist who set up an organization called Momentum, which loves me. I think not. And he set up this organization called Momentum, which they put around Corbyn, the leader. And he, a very rich man, John Landsman, who poses as someone who cares about the oppressed working class. Not convinced me, I have to be honest with you. And he's now coming out saying that Williamson basically shouldn't be allowed back. And perhaps the Labour Party membership might just ask themselves, what is this Momentum organisation that in so many ways has taken over the Labour Party? What is it? And what's its agenda? And who does it actually answer to? Now, just to show you that this whole idea that all Jewish people think the same is ludicrous is a great example, heartwarming example. Demanding end to AIPAC-created status quo, progressive Jewish group pressures 2020 Democrats to stand against Israel's brutal occupation. AIPAC being one of the central pillars of the Zionist hate group lobby and lobby for Israel network, which is vast in the United States. And this is the story. In an effort to pressure Democrat presidential candidates, all of which are a rabble except Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, in my view, to take a stand against Israel's treatment of Palestinians, the youth-led progressive Jewish advocacy group, If Not Now, has launched a new campaign arm with the goal of bringing Israel's brutal occupation to the forefront in the 2020 elections. Well, given that the Israel Zionist, ultra-Zionist lobby funds more American politicians than any other source, I think they might find some resistance with that, but good on them for going down this road. As Politico reported, If Not Now is training organizers in the early primary state of New Hampshire and plans to bird dog, whatever that means, presidential candidates at public events to create viral moments and prod the Democratic leftward issue of Israel. In addition to pushing the candidates to adopt more progressive positions on Israel, or cut the funding, that will start, the group said it is hoping to draw public attention to the Democratic Party's changing attitudes on the topic and clarify candidates' stances on particular issues. So Bernie Sanders appears to have been the first 2020 presidential candidate confronted by If Not Now members in New Hampshire. The group said the senator expressed support for their campaign. And, what's very clear and very encouraging is that young Jewish people in America, in ever larger numbers, are not buying the far, far, far right Israeli government propaganda anymore. And it's really great, because who cares if you're bloody Jewish? Who cares if you're Muslim or none of them? We're all the same consciousness having different experiences. The labels are just illusions. And the sinking in of that awareness is what will change the world.